Discover the incredible transformation, how a homeless girl changed a billionaire's life forever. She was only 16, yet Emily exuded a strength that belied her age. Navigating the harsh streets of Los Angeles, she clung to hope amidst the darkness that threatened to engulf her. Abandoned by her family, her heart hardened with a resolve to survive. In a rundown park, she demade her home, sleeping under a blanket of stars that felt more like a cruel joke than a promise. The world around her buzzed with ambition and luxury, while her own dreams felt just as distant as the illuminated skyline. But on cold nights, she found warmth in an old book, a worn copy of The Pursuit of Happiness, each page a reminder of the light at the end of the tunnel, that transformation was possible, yet within her flickering hope lay doubt. What if she wasn't meant for more? Every day, she stared into the faces of the utterly indifferent pedestrians, and her body tensed with a whirlwind of emotions, anger, envy, and deep-seated fear. Walking past the sterile shops and fancy offices, she felt her heart sink. All she wanted was a taste of the life constantly lauded by the billboards towering over her success, dignity, and love. But here she was, a shadow. Would she ever escape this bleak existence? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The tension escalated that evening at the charity gala, glittering with superficial smiles and practiced generosity. Emily, against all odds, had found the courage to share her story. As she stepped onto the stage, the echoes of her voice resonated like a spell, breaking through layers of polished ignorance. She spoke of hunger, of nights spent shivering alone, of being judged rather than seen. A wave of raw honesty bubbled to the surface, and for a brief moment, the audience was captivated not by glamour, but by truth. And there, in the crowd, was Jack Thornton, a titan of industry who thrived on numbers and negotiation. As her words washed over him, an unfamiliar sensation gripped his heart. He felt exposed, every instinct telling him to retreat to the safety of spreadsheets and meetings. But could he turn away from this girl whose fierce spirit was igniting something long forgotten inside of him? Yet, as the curtain fell and applause echoed, he wrestled with a morality he hadn't considered in too long. Emily found herself breathing harder, uncertainty fluttering in her chest. Jack's attention ignited a flicker of hope, yet his wealth and power loomed like shadows cast by towering ceilings. Should she accept his proposition of mentorship? Or would it come at the cost of her independence? The thought of surrendering control made her throat tighten. She had spent too long clawing her way through the muck. Could he truly understand her fight, or would she be just another trophy for him to claim? The evening swirled around them, voices fading into an electric hum. Emily's newfound visibility felt like a double-edged sword. Just as her circumstances seemed to force her into a new world, the fear of losing herself under someone else's thumb quickly thundered in her mind. Standing at the crossroads with Jack, the weight of anticipation filled every breath. They grasped at one another like two ships about to collide in a stormy sea. Would she risk it all to challenge his status quo, or was her soul destined to remain an outsider? The silence crackled, the night thick with tension as they held their ground, teetering on the precipice of transformation. A deep breath steadied Emily's resolve as she stared intently at Jack Thornton. The microphone still hung in her hand, its weight reminding her of the vulnerability she had just laid bare for all to see. His brownness in concentration revealed the internal struggle unfolding, not just within her, but evidently mirrored in his demeanor. His presence was compelling, yet intimidating. The distance between them seemed vast, an ocean of uncertainty that made her question everything. Jack broke the silence first, his voice cautious yet imbued with an unfamiliar warmth. You have a powerful story, Emily. You could inspire so many. I want to help you. Her heart raced as the words resonated in her mind. Help. Mentor. Was this an opportunity or a trap? Memories of the cold, lonesome nights flooded back, and she questioned if accepting his offer would come with strings attached, strings she could feel tightening around her independence. The prospect of mentorship was enticing, but the fear of relinquishing control gnawed at her like a persistent hunger. Why me? She shot back, her tone sharper than intended. Why would a billionaire care to invest in a homeless girl? The challenge was deliberate, an attempt to gauge whether he was genuine or simply swept up in the moment. Jack's eyes narrowed slightly, a flicker of surprise dancing across his features. Because you have the ability to evoke change. I see it in the way you speak, the fire in your eyes. It's refreshing in a world filled with empty promises. His words measured, yet something about his gaze anchored her for a moment, a twinge of connection amidst the chaos. She hesitated, the possibilities coiling around her like a serpent waiting to strike. And what do you expect in return? The question slipped out, defensive instinct kicking in, weariness from years of survival surfacing. Jack's expression softened. Nothing you're not ready to offer. Just your commitment to strive for something greater. There was sincerity there, but doubt tugged at Emily's consciousness, threatening to unravel the thread he tried to weave between them. She envisioned falling under his power, drowning in the very world she had fought so hard to navigate around, refusing to back down. Emily took a deep breath, asserting her voice as she leaned closer. I've fought for every inch of ground I stand on. I've had to make tough decisions, often sacrificing comforts to survive. My life is mine, Jack. I want to be silenced or molded into someone else's idea of success. The confrontation felt electrifying, a line drawn in the sand that could either unite or separate them entirely. Recognition washed over Jack. Perhaps he saw himself in her, a man molded by the pressure of expectation and circumstance. The distance between them narrowed, not just physically but in shared understanding. I'd never ask you to sacrifice who you are, he replied, determination edging his voice. This is about growth, not alteration. You can inspire change in a way that matters, even amidst a world that often overlooks the struggle. Wave upon wave of apprehension clashed with a burgeoning sense of potential. She felt alive in a way she hadn't for so long, torn between possibility and disbelief. The precarious balance of hope and fear lingered palpably in the space between them. It's a leap, she murmured slowly, the words falling like grains of sand between them. It is, Jack affirmed. As silence fell again, and the world faded into background noise, the depth of the decision loomed larger than before. What did accepting his offer entail? Was she truly courageous enough to forge a new path, to reclaim the agency she had fought so hard for? Emily stood at the precipice, a moment poised for transformation. Would she embrace the opportunity before her and risk everything, or would she retreat into the shadows of her past? The silent question hung between them, heavy with the weight of possibility. The moment stretched, each second ticking toward the inevitable act of choice. Somewhere in the recesses of her mind, a voice whispered this was her chance to step into the light. But unknown repercussions danced in the shadows, waiting to be acknowledged. Emily, Jack breathed, dark eyes locked onto hers, compelling her inward. The time has come to face the truth of who you really can become. Ready to let go of everything she thought she knew, Emily took a step forward, her pulse quickening. Would the leap propel her into a new life or shatter her resolve? The answer lay in the hands of her own determination, a truth she was only beginning to confront. Emily took a breath that felt like it could echo across the vast uncertainty surrounding her. Each heartbeat pounded with the weight of the decision before her, a crossroads tinged with the essence of fear and possibility. Jack stood across from her, a steadying force amidst the chaos swirling within her. His words hung heavy in the air, daring her to leap. Was this the moment she had been waiting for? A chance not only to rise from the shadows of her past but to embrace a new life that demanded more than mere survival. She gazed at Jack, attempting to decipher the man behind the polished exterior, a billionaire with the tools to help or hinder whatever growth she could achieve. Would he support her independence, or was he merely a conduit for his own self-interest? I'll take that leap, she finally declared, her voice sharper than expected yet full of resolve. The instant she spoke, relief washed over her, mixing with the adrenaline coursing through her veins. She had chosen, and in that moment, a sense of power began to unfurl within her. Jack's smile reflected genuine warmth. That's a great step, Emily. But remember, growth doesn't come without challenges. It requires facing fears, and sometimes, that means confronting parts of ourselves we don't want to accept. The statement pierced through her excitement, shimmering with honesty. She had danced around her fears for years, finding ways to survive but never truly thrive. What kind of challenges? She asked, curiosity gripping her. Well, he replied, leaning closer, engaging her in this shared endeavor. The question you will need to tackle is not about what life offers you but what you will truly ask of yourself. You'll need a vision, a plan, and the discipline to make it a reality. Emboldened by his words, Emily felt the tingling anticipation of possibility rush through her. I've always had a vision, she confessed, her voice growing steadier. I want to use my experiences to help others like me, to speak up for those still struggling. Jack nodded, impressed. Then let us build on that. But we'll start by focusing on you, the person you want to become. This shift felt monumental. In her vulnerability appeared a tantalizing prospect of personal empowerment, one she had never allowed herself to seize. Yet there was still a looming question at the back of her mind: how could she trust that his intentions aligned with hers? You speak of discipline. What does that look like for me? Emily asked, feeling the determination coalesce with her uncertainties. It means creating a routine, setting goals, and embracing accountability. I'll guide you, but it's your commitment that will lay the foundation. And you'll face resistance not just from the world but from within yourselves. Self-doubt will be your greatest adversary. The assessment resonated deeply, awakening an awareness she had spent years dulling. Facing self-doubt, she reflected internally, has been the mantra of my existence. Exactly, Jack confirmed, unsettling her with his insight. When we embark on this journey together, you will discover capabilities you never knew you had. It will be painful at times, but out of that pain will come growth. The prospect of introspection threatened to unbalance her newfound commitment, but beneath the nervousness simmered a relentless flame of determination. I don't want to be defined by my past. And you want to be, Jack assured her. Life is not about what happened but how you choose to transcend it. For the first time, Emily sensed a fracture in her fear. It was a realization that change would one day come without confrontation. She envisioned a new version of herself, a woman who could stand firm against the tides of her history, asserting control over her narrative. Yet, as she imagined this transformation, the ache of vulnerability lingered. Would it break her spirit or allow her to regain the agency she had lost? Are you ready for that? Jack's voice cut through her thoughts, peculiar challenge dancing behind his gaze. She met his eyes, the intensity of his inquiry igniting a spark of bravery. Within her, though the implications behind it were daunting. I am, she whispered, conviction spiraling and coalescing into a force she never knew she had. With every ounce of her being, she resolved to navigate the challenges ahead, an uncharted territory laden with risk but also rich with possibility. But in the depths of her resolve, a sliver of doubt scratched at the edges of this burgeoning confidence. The journey ahead promised growth, but the cost remained cloaked in mystery. Then let us begin, Jack said, nodding firmly. As they stepped together into the uncertain realm of transformation, Emily felt a crucial shift. She was no longer just a victim of her circumstances. Instead, she was an architect of her destiny, ready to face whatever lay ahead. But just as she embraced this new perspective, a late-night text vibrated her phone. It was an unknown number, and the message read, "You think you can change? We'll see about that." A chill ran down her spine. The shadows of her past were stirring, and now she had to confront more than just her personal demons. The game had changed, and she was entangled in something bigger than she could have imagined. The room felt suffocating, every shadow stretching and curling like the whispers of doubt that slid beneath the surface of Emily's thoughts. As she stared at the glowing screen, the unknown message lingered in her mind, reverberating through her new determination. Who was this person? What did they want? Jack sensed the shift in her demeanor. Emily. What is wrong? Taking a moment, she steadied her breath, forcing control over the rising tide of anxiety. I just got a message from someone I don't know. They said some unsettling things. He stepped closer, reading the worry in her eyes. What did it say? She hesitated but knew she had to share this new tension. It said, "You think you can change? We'll see about that." Jack's expression turned serious, and a flicker of concern crossed his features. You can't let it define you. It's a reminder of what you're fighting against. Use it as fuel. Fuel. The word resonated within her, igniting a blaze of resolve. Yet, as the initial shock faded, a surge of adrenaline kicked in. I can't be haunted by the past anymore. I'm not that girl, the one who felt powerless and lost. Exactly, Jack said, his voice calm yet firm. Let's turn this into motivation. Challenge yourself to respond, but not to them. Respond to yourself. Focus on your goals and embrace this new identity. They sat down at the sleek glass table, and Jack pulled out his laptop. Let us outline your vision, set clear goals, and create a timeline. This will be your accountability tool. Emily's heart raced with anticipation. What if I fail? What if I can't keep it up? Then you learn. Failure is part of the growth process. Instead of retreating, you will observe where things went wrong and adjust. The real failure is when you don't try at all. She felt the weight of those words settle in. Failure was something she understood deeply, yet this was a different painting of the same picture. It wasn't about giving up, it was about picking herself up again and again. Let us start with what you envision for your future, Jack encouraged. Where do you see yourself in a year? Emily took a moment, recalibrating her thoughts. I want to be engaged in a community, sharing my story to inspire others. I want to help those who are struggling like I once was. Jack took notes, nodding in agreement. That is powerful. And tangible. Now, let us break it down. What steps can you take in the next month? The energy buzzed around them as they shifted from abstract dreams to concrete actions. Emily felt ideas bubbling up: the need to network with outreach programs, start a blog documenting her journey, find a mentor who had walked a similar path. I can research local organizations that might need speakers or volunteers. Maybe I could start sharing on social media to build an audience, she said, gaining momentum. Yes. Jack replied, encouragingly. That is proactive thinking. Now, what about managing your routine? What habits will support your growth? She creased her brow, feeling the severity of the question. The habits she had clung to for security suddenly felt inadequate. Staring at the blank page, she began to confront her daily practices: not just what she would do, but what she would need to relinquish. Free time is my biggest weakness. I have to limit my distractions: social media and mindless scrolling. I've used them as escape routes, she admitted. Identifying that is already a significant step. But control what you consume because it shapes your aspirations, Jack advised. Right, she responded, her voice tensing with conviction. I need to fill my life with positivity: people who inspire me, books that teach me, actions that uplift me. Suddenly, the weight of her transformation felt tangible, slipping through her fingers like sand as she committed to this journey actively. Yet, the threat loomed nearby, a reminder that while she braved the unknown, shadows still lurked in her past. As they wrapped up their brainstorming, Emily's phone buzzed again. It was a notification, but nothing she wanted to see. It was a photo of her past. The very image she'd feared would resurface during this delicate time. Jack's eyes caught her expression. What is it? It's from an old friend, she stammered, dread clawing at her resolve. They tagged me in something. Jack's focus sharpened. Open it. Faced with the choice to confront the echoes of her past in real time, Emily felt the walls close in. Would she allow this to derail her? Would she address the image, a moment frozen in time, representing her former self, or would she redefine that narrative? The skin of her resolve thinned, but deep down, a fierce determination pulsed. She had a decision to make at this critical juncture, a test of her new self. Taking a breath, she touched the screen, curiosity battling fear. Her journey was just beginning, and now it felt as if every step forward was met with a challenge that had the potential to unravel it all. The moment of reckoning was near. Would she embrace her power, or was her past preparing to reclaim dominance? The screen flickered to life, inviting her to confront the depths. What lay beyond could either propel her forward or pull her back into darkness. The screen glowed ominously as Emily braced herself. Memories surged, threatening to tether her to that past she was desperately escaping. Each pixel seemed to pulse with a life of its own, mocking her attempts at transformation. With her heart pounding, she finally tapped the notification, the image flooding her senses. There she was, the girl she had sworn to forget, a version of herself consumed by insecurities, entangled in the chaos of a former life. A distant friend smiled beside her, arms thrown wide as if they were both on top of the world. But Emily's world had crumbled into fragments long ago. Emily, Jack said, snapping her back to the present. What do you see? I see the girl who didn't know how to fight back, she said, the words suffused with both nostalgia and fear. The stark reality struck her: this was the very energy she wanted to shed, not relive. Look closer, Jack urged. What does this image evoke? Taking a moment, she searched for empowering threads woven into the fabric of her past experience. It feels like a reminder that I can be vulnerable, but it also shows me how far I've come. I can redefine the story. Jack nodded, his expression encouraging yet thoughtful. Channel that, he instructed. The emotion behind that photograph can be harnessed. What do you have to lose? Everything, she whispered under her breath. The fear of slipping back into despair was palpable, gnawing at her resolve. But another part of her flickered with defiance. But what if I expose myself to the very thing I fear? Then you will confront it. Jack leaned in, his gaze steady. Don't command from a position of fear. Your story now seconds as your shield. You're stronger than what that image represents. As Jack's words settled, an unexpected clarity emerged. For her, equating her worth to that image was no longer an option. She envisioned using that photo as a symbol of her journey rather than a shackle to her past. Fine, she said, firming her voice. I'll turn this into content, authentic storytelling. She felt the idea blossom within her, egged on by the adrenaline coursing through her veins. I can write a post, share my truth directly. Let the past speak to the present. Jack's eyes gleamed with pride. Now that's the spirit. How can you get it out there? Social media would be a good start. I can connect with others who walk this path. Maybe if I show my vulnerability, it will help someone else. Yes. See how this experience shifts from pain to purpose. Jack encouraged, a smile spreading across his face. A flush of excitement swept over her as she began to draft her thoughts, balancing the haunting memories with the hope they had birthed. But an ache lingered, a dull whisper that this wasn't enough. What if no one cares? She muttered, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. Then what you need to ask is why you care, Jack replied. This isn't about their approval, it's your liberation. People will resonate with your authenticity. Emily's brow furrowed, and she gripped the laptop tightly, recalling all the moments she had felt invisible. You're right. If I pour my essence into this, it will reflect back. With newfound commitment, she began to write. The words spilled out, raw and real, echoing the struggles she had endured but also the strength that now resided within her. Time dissolved as she delved into her narrative, and as she crafted each sentence, she felt layers of doubt peeling away. Yet, as the piece began to take shape, a familiar sensation re-emerged, doubt sneaking back in through the cracks in her confidence. What if I'm not ready for the backlash? What if they don't understand? It's part of the process, Jack reminded gently. Growth isn't linear, every step presents new trials. You want to always have a clear path, but that's where resilience is built. The truth behind Jack's words dug deep, inciting a storm of determination within her. I can do this. As she hit publish, a fuse ignited somewhere deep inside, merging her vulnerabilities into a form of power. The familiar darkness from the past no longer danced around her. Like a shadow. Instead, it shifted into a motivation to be seen, to be understood, but as the post went live, a sudden notification jolted her. New messages pinged in, some supportive, some laced with doubt. Emily's pulse quickened. Facing scrutiny didn't just mean exposure, it meant she had to confront the very judgment she had avoided for so long. Are you ready for this? Jack asked, noting her apprehension. With a deep breath, Emily straightened. This was the moment to claim her space not as a victim of her past, but as a woman weaving her own narrative. Let us see how this goes, she said, determination hardened. Yet the underlying question loomed larger: was she truly prepared for the unpredictable responses, both good and bad, that could reshape her journey even further? Emily stared at the screen, her heart racing in anticipation. Responses flooded in, each notification a reminder of her leap into the unknown. Some messages were encouraging, a few expressed empathy, and one particularly harsh comment made her gut twist with uncertainty. Was this the price of authenticity? Remember, Jack said, his voice steady beside her. Every response is an opportunity. Your vulnerability opens a dialogue, even with the critics. With clenched fists, she began to scroll through the comments, collecting different perspectives like people gathering in a bustling square. Each reaction, positive or negative, served to illuminate a part of her she was only beginning to understand. She felt as if she were picking apart pieces of an intricate puzzle that was her identity. Look at this, she said, pointing at a comment that thanked her for sharing her story. She says it's helped her feel less alone. Relief swelled within her, dispelling some of the anxiety that had bubbled beneath the surface. See? That's the power of your voice. You're creating connections, Jack emphasized. The days that followed were a whirlwind of notifications, private messages, and conversations ignited by her post. Emily found herself returning to her laptop, more determined than ever to write not only about her own experiences but to engage with those who reached out to her. She started to explore the dimensions of her narrative, diving into moments she had once viewed as painful. Perhaps within those stories lay more than vulnerability; they held the seeds for growth. As the comments multiplied, so did her motivation to share more. What if I gather all these stories and create something bigger? She mused aloud, visions of workshops and forums blurred with excitement. Start small, Jack advised. Perhaps a series of posts. Or even a blog where people can share their journeys too. A sudden thought jolted her. I've never thought of myself as a leader. What if my voice can inspire others to share theirs? The notion both thrilled and terrified her. Only by stepping into that leadership do you grow, Emily. You're becoming someone who can influence positive change. Jack's faith in her ignited something inside. If she could embrace her past, perhaps she could empower others. She pictured a platform where people exchanged raw stories, creating a tapestry of experiences, each thread vibrant and meaningful. Still, hesitation crept back in, a shadow reappearing in the corners of her mind. But what if they think I'm just seeking attention? Or what if I fail? Failure is part of the journey. It's what you do with that fear that counts. With a steely resolve, Emily altered her perspective. Defining herself as inadequate was no longer an option, rather, she recognized it as a catalyst for growth. Slowly, she began to chart her next post, topics of resilience, finding strength in vulnerability, confronting insecurities, and the importance of community, each woven from threads of her experience. But even as the writing flowed, an unsettling sensation lingered. The anticipation of what others might think loomed large over her. She leaned back in her chair and sighed. Was she truly equipped to take on this mantle? Each message, each story also posed an implicit challenge, asking her to shed light on areas of discomfort. Jack, I'm not sure I'm ready to be vulnerable about everything yet, she admitted, feeling the weight of her hesitation settle heavily upon her shoulders. Then focus on what feels safe to share right now. Your journey is ongoing. It's okay to take it one step at a time. His words dripped with encouragement, nudging her toward understanding that her evolution could be gradual. She had strength yet to uncover. As she sat in front of her laptop, pleasantly exhausted from her writing sessions, a new notification pinged. Opening the message, her eyes widened. A local magazine was interested in featuring her story. But with that opportunity came pressure. She would have to confront her past in a way she had yet to process fully. Emily. Jack's voice sliced through her thoughts. Are you ready to take this leap? Her heart raced. I think so, but what if this exposure becomes overwhelming? Then it will be another opportunity to grow. You'll learn about yourself as you navigate this new level of risk. Her breath caught. She felt the storm of anxiety rising within, but a flicker of determination calmed the waves just enough. Okay, let us see where this goes, she said, the urgency of that moment settling in. The stakes had just been raised. Emily knew that accepting this opportunity would alter her journey significantly, but amidst the fear and excitement, a profound revelation began to form. Would this experience not only reshape her narrative but also redefine her understanding of self-worth? Just as she began to formulate her response to the magazine, she heard Jack's voice again. The next leap is often the hardest. With the weight of that realization settling in, Emily nodded. She was about to confront both her past and the challenging path ahead. Would she rise to meet this new challenge, or would the fears she harbored all this time prove too daunting to face? Emily's nervous fingers hovered over the keyboard, the blinking cursor a metronome marking the rhythm of her anxiety. The magazine's request loomed before her like a vast open sea, both daunting and exhilarating. What story do I tell? How much do I reveal? The question spiraled in her mind, each layered with uncertainty and self-doubt. Taking a deep breath, she reminded herself of Jack's encouragement, start small. With that mantra echoing in her ears, she decided to focus on one thread, a single moment of clarity from her past that encapsulated her journey of finding strength amidst chaos. It was a story about her darkest days, the ones she had long buried beneath layers of shame. Could she unveil that part of her, knowing it might invite judgment? The clock ticked incessantly, and with each passing second, her anxiety crescendoed. She needed to confront the specter of failure, which crept ever closer with the burden of expectations. However, each narrative she contemplated also felt like an invitation to revisit her past, pushing her to re-examine the struggles that had molded her. Perhaps sharing those pieces can create not just understanding for others, but healing for myself, she pondered, slowly convincing herself to be brave. After deliberating for what felt like hours, she began typing. The words flowed, conjuring images of a former self, the quiet girl nestled in an alley, clutching her knees, feeling utterly invisible yet yearning to be seen. As she wrote about that pivotal moment of connection with a stranger who offered her kindness, a flicker of warmth ignited within her. This narrative was no longer just hers, it had the potential to resonate, to bridge the divide between pain and understanding. When she concluded her first draft, a rush of adrenaline surged through her veins. What if they judge me? The nagging thought slithered back. Emily wanted to be transparent, yet she had discovered that vulnerability was a double-edged sword. It could either invite understanding or provoke scorn. As she read her words, the recollection of harsh comments from her earlier post reverberated in her mind, an unseen judge glaring down, weighing merit against criticism. Remember why you're doing this, she whispered to herself. Andrew S. philosophy from the workshops emotional resilience allows us to face criticism as a path to growth. Encouraged, she revised her message, pushing her fears into the background as she embraced the pivotal role of authenticity in her storytelling. Jack's words echoed as she focused on the bigger picture. She envisioned her piece as part of a continuous evolution not just of herself, but of all those who might read her story. Suddenly, a profound realization dawned: if she exposed herself to criticism, she could redefine how she viewed vulnerability itself. It was not a weakness but a conduit for connection. All right, let us take another leap, she murmured, hitting send on her email submission. The notification successfully sent felt like a wall had crumbled down, a small act that held immense power. Yet, immediately after relief washed her over, a pang of alarm bubbled up. The response was mere moments away. Would editor feedback validate her fears or encourage her growth? Above all, what was next? The potential reflections awaited her. She could rewrite not just the narrative of her past but envisage a future where embracing imperfection would become a strength. As she glanced at her phone, another message flashed on the screen. This one was from a name she did not recognize, but the intrigue was undeniable. I read your story. Can we talk about your journey? The words danced through her mind, igniting curiosity and further uncertainty. Emily felt the swell of possibilities before her. Could this be what led to greater revelations or connections? Whatever it entailed, she knew she was on the cusp of something transformative, both professionally and personally. Taking a deep breath, she opened the message, her heart racing as she anticipated the next steps in this unfolding journey. What awaited her on the other side of this conversation, and could it change the direction of her narrative yet again? Emily stared at the screen, the cursor pulsating as she anticipated the response to the stranger's message. What journey? She muttered to herself, grappling with the implications. Doubt wormed its way into the corners of her mind. Who was this person? What made her story compelling enough to spark someone else's interest? With a conscious effort, she pushed back against her reservations. This was not just about her, it was about exploration, about unearthing possibilities she had only just begun to glimpse. Emily clicked on the message, the tension in her chest tightening as she typed back her willingness to connect. Sure, I'd love to talk. What did you find interesting about my story? The moments that followed felt stretched taut, as if the fabric of time itself was holding its breath. Then came a response. It resonated with me on many levels. I'd like to discuss not just your past but what you're doing next. There it was, a past beckoning to her future, a connection bridging the two worlds. Intrigued, she agreed to meet, the edges of her anxiety blurring with a daring sense of adventure. The following morning, at a bustling cafe that pulsed with urgency and energy, she arrived early, her hands fidgeting around her cup of coffee. She scanned the room, half expectant that a silhouette of familiarity might grace the entrance. The reflection of her own nerves stared back at her through the glass. It dawned on Emily that this was more than just an exchange of stories. This meeting was an opportunity to challenge her perceptions of herself. She was not defined by her past mistakes but was shaped by how she responded to them moving forward. As she waited, thoughts ricocheted through her mind. What if I'm not interesting enough? What if my struggles seem trivial to them? The questions battled for dominance, but, bolstered by the strength she had drawn from writing her story, a resolve flickered within her. Yes, Emily had faced what felt like insurmountable odds, but hadn't they all? Just as she had offered vulnerability in her written piece, she yearned to explore the depths of her own resilience in person, and then she saw her, an elegantly poised woman. Her name was Sophie, and as they exchanged pleasantries, Emily felt a palpable energy enveloping their dialogue. They sat facing one another, and Sophie leaned in, her eyes piercing through the mundane chatter. You have an incredible story, Emily. It's not just about pain, it's about surviving, thriving even. There is an immense power in that. The warmth of her words began dismantling the walls of Emily's self-doubt. Sophie elaborated on her own journey, revealing snippets of struggles that echoed Emily's experiences. An entrepreneur rebounding from failure, she had set up a non-profit aimed at helping those caught in tumultuous circumstances, a mission inspired by her own rocky start. Have you thought about using your voice beyond just a magazine? Sophie's inquiry hung in the air like a ripe fruit, ready to be plucked. There is a wide audience out there, and I believe people can learn so much from your insights. Emily considered this new horizon, a blend of excitement and fear rippling through her. Beyond the constraints of her past, perhaps she could contribute to a dialogue that fostered understanding. Sophie's presence felt like a magnetic pull toward a purpose, a call to embrace the narrative she had only begun to unravel. As they continued to talk, Emily grasped the enormity of the moment. This was not just a conversation, it was a pivotal chapter of her narrative. Each revelation, each shared experience, reinforced her understanding that vulnerability fortified connections rather than undermined them. Hours slipped away, but the conversation did not. It wove itself into something larger, something both exhilarating and daunting. So what is next for you? Sophie asked, a glimmer of challenge in her eyes. Maybe, Emily paused, a thrilling epiphany crystallizing in her mind, I could speak or write more extensively about this journey. Sophie smiled knowingly. Then let us help each other. You in? With a newfound sense of clarity and purpose, Emily nodded, uncertainty giving way to determination. This felt like the beginning of a collective evolution, where the path of her personal development intersected with a broader mission to support others. Yet, a lingering fear tightened her chest. What happens if I fail? Failure is simply a step towards success, Sophie said, her confidence infectious. And there it was, the next challenge unveiled. As they rose to leave, Emily felt the weight of her fears transform into a determination that pulsated. I'm ready, she whispered to herself, but the question loomed. Was she prepared to face the very fears that had haunted her for so long? With the door to new possibilities swinging open, a surge of exhilaration accompanied the anxious flutter in her stomach. Would she embrace this path that might lead to her risking everything she had just begun to reclaim? The moment felt electric, vibrating with potential. As they parted ways, Sophie's final words echoed in her ears, an undeniable call to action. Let us discover how your story can change lives, starting with your own. Emily turned away, her heart racing with both terror and excitement. The real journey was just beginning, and she was about to challenge not only her own limits, but the very fabric of who she thought she was. What awaited her on this new path? The unknown loomed tantalizingly ahead, full of promise and peril alike. Emily awoke the next morning, the dawn light spilling through her window, a reminder of both the promise of the day and the weight of the choices that lay ahead. She took a deep breath, her mind racing back to the conversation with Sophie. The gravity of the exchange resonated deep within her, propelling her into an unexpected realm of ambition. Could she truly leverage her experiences to create a meaningful impact? She laced up her sneakers, needing the clarity that movement often brought. As she slipped out the door, Emily felt the familiar buzz of nerves and excitement intertwine in her core, propelling her toward the park. It was here that she could breathe, reflect, and perhaps, most importantly, think. With each step, memories of her past, the struggles, the battles against her own self-worth flooded her mind. The self-doubt that had plagued her for so long seemed more manageable now, almost an echo in her consciousness rather than a commanding presence. The very act of acknowledgement transformed the apprehensions into stepping stones toward a larger goal. As she reached the park, Emily settled onto her favorite bench, the world around her bustling with activity. It was a microcosm of life as unpredictability, laughter mingled with shouts, children chased pigeons, and couples strolled hand in hand. She felt the pull of connection around her, a contrast to the isolation she had sometimes embraced. Opening her laptop, she began to draft an outline for what could become her first public speaking engagement. Ideas flowed, blank spaces filled rapidly as questions turned into insights. What can I share about resilience? How can I help others see their own strength through my narrative? Writing had always been a refuge, now, it morphed into a tool for transformation, but beneath the exhilaration loomed shadows of fear. The weight of expectations felt heavy. Would Sophie think she was capable? Was she really prepared to dive back into her past, to examine it closely enough to share it publicly? Contemplation coursed through her mind, draining the energy she just cultivated, fighting back against those swirling uncertain thoughts. She remembered a pivotal lesson from Sophie. Failure, she had said, was a step toward success. It was not the end but part of the journey. The notion suddenly sparked a revelation. What if she embraced those fears, turned them into a narrative anchor rather than a weight? This could be her testimony to the transformative power of vulnerability. Emily scribbled lines of her narrative, interspersing her past troubles with hope. It felt raw and real, a reflection of her authentic self, and as she poured her heart into the words, the process became cathartic. Each sentence let her reclaim pieces of herself that had been forgotten in the shadows of self-doubt. In that moment, as sunlight streamed through the trees, she felt invincible. She was no longer simply a girl with a story, she was becoming a voice for others. The thought invigorated her. She imagined the impact her words could have on someone like her, navigating their own tumultuous journey. After hours of writing, Emily closed her laptop, an oddly refreshing fatigue settling in. She had charted the beginning of a new chapter, one defined not by her past mistakes but by her evolution and potential. As she made her way back home, a sense of clarity enveloped her. She resolved to reach out to Sophie to share her progress, to invite collaboration that could help solidify her path. But amid these new plans, the question returned: how far was she willing to push her boundaries? What discomforts awaited her as she stepped onto this new stage? That evening, Emily sent the message, her finger hovering above the send button. With a deep breath, she pressed it. But as soon as the message was sent, a new pang of uncertainty flickered in her chest. Could she deliver the final product? The moment hung in the air, and deep within, Emily understood that this was just the beginning of testing her limits. She was poised to challenge not only her own perceptions but the expectations of those around her. What lay ahead wouldn't just redefine her narrative, it had the potential to reshape her identity entirely. As she prepared for whatever might come next, her heart raced with both trepidation and anticipation. Was she truly ready to step into the light, to claim her story fully? The dawn of a new chapter awaited, illuminated by the robust energy of change and the undeniable thrill of the unknown. The sun rose with a promise, illuminating the vibrant cityscape of Los Angeles that Emily once viewed with longing. No longer a mere observer, she stood at the edge of transformation. With determination ignited through much introspection, she felt ready to reclaim her narrative and define her success. Days turned into weeks, each morning following the last, and they brought not just routine, but a rigorous appointment with growth. Emily established a schedule that reflected her newfound identity: mornings devoted to writing, afternoons engaged in community outreach, and evenings reserved for self-reflection and connection with like-minded individuals. It wasn't easy, there were moments of temptation, of distraction, but she persevered, cementing her discipline as the bedrock of her evolution. Each time she delivered her story during a small local event or through social media, Emily witnessed authentic connections flourish. Individuals resonated with her vulnerabilities, emboldened her story, they saw themselves reflected in her journey, and in turn, their shared narrative sparked the synergy she hadn't anticipated. This collective understanding fortified her resolve even more. She wasn't just reclaiming her life, she was helping others articulate their own struggles. Sophie's guidance was invaluable, providing mentorship suffused with the wisdom drawn from experience. The two collaborated on developing materials for public speaking, and Emily took the stage at local events with the confidence that belied her origins. Each time she stood before an audience, the fear that once gripped her loosened its hold, replaced by a powerful conviction. She learned to command the room with the authority of someone who had effectively harnessed her past to empower others, igniting sparks of resilience with every word. Their partnership blossomed, leading to impactful workshops designed to foster vulnerability and unity. Emily stepped into her role as a facilitator. She nurtured an environment where attendees could share their stories. This pivotal journey transformed her from the quiet girl lost in shadows into a beacon of hope for those once shrouded in silence. They could all see the light, a reflection of their own potential. Her metamorphosis did not go unnoticed. Recognition came not only from local media but also from organizations eager to align with her narrative. Emily received invitations to share her experiences at larger conferences, unlocking pathways to even broader audiences. The validation was invigorating, but it was not merely the outward accolades that mattered, it was the internal shifts she had conquered. Her mindset solidified into a triad of conviction, authenticity, resilience, and empowerment. Those attributes anchored her identity. She achieved competency where there once was chaos, and competency echoed in her newly established platforms, powerful engagements that fostered community healing. One fateful day, amidst a structured presentation addressing a room filled with eager listeners, she paused. The audience was captivated, not just by her story, but by the authenticity radiating from her every word. At that moment, a thought crystallized: she was not merely speaking, she was rewriting her history. The culmination arrived as Emily stood before an audience of promising potential. She embraced the clarity in the air, the knowledge that she had transcended her fear, carved out her space, and earned her voice. The shadows of her past faded further, finally retreating to be viewed not as threats but as experiences that had shaped the warrior. As the applause rolled through the room, she couldn't help but smile a satisfied, deep-rooted smile. This was a moment the fusion of her journey realized, her courage acknowledged. Emily had successfully redefined not only her narrative but also the very fabric of her identity. She had transitioned from being a frightened girl to becoming a guiding light for countless others searching for hope. Even as the echoes of applause mingled with heartfelt affirmations from her audience, her resolve remained clear. A new chapter awaited her, replete with potential, challenges, and the unyielding belief that she possessed the power to turn her past into hope for the future. This is your call to action. You need to subscribe now to our channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that will inspire your transformation. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help us grow. Your support makes a difference. Comment below with your reactions and theories about Emily's journey and the lessons you've learned from it. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support helps spread these powerful stories of change and resilience.